I love this movie still as much as it is possible to love a movie. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, you know what? I was pleasantly surprised because I mean, I've seen this movie many times. I like this movie. I liked this movie when it came out, and watching it again now has probably been, God, 20 years, since I
10 for
watched
me.
it.
At
Yeah.
least 10 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and it's like, God damn, it's a well-made film. I
Right.
mean, it moves right along. If you think about what Paddy Chayefsky did in terms of just pacing and how he put the story together, it there's no fat on it. It works. It takes you through the step by step. It's like a stair step of like
Yeah.
each trip is hairier than the one before until finally you get the ultimate trip.
Yeah.
And that is a reference to 2001, and
Oh, well,
that
yeah,
is a reference to 2001 behind you.
But you know what? If you're gonna get supernatural like that, everyone's gonna point to 2001. It's just how it is.
Yeah, but that final trip in the tank with all the water effects, like
Yeah.
the microscopic water effects and stuff. Yeah, it was
That's
very.
like, I can think of lots of films that do this, like Brainstorm did this. And
Oh my God, yeah. Everybody was trying. I mean, people still aren't over 2001. I mean, you can still see TV commercials to this day.
or
Well,
Hello,
fucking Barbie,
yeah,
Tree of
right?
Life.
exactly.
Hello, Tree of Life.
I was reading but
Hello,
anyway,
Tree of Life.
so
Yeah.
I saw this when it came out, and I was very impressed when it came out. It's not the 41st Avenue Playhouse, and like, wow, there was an Dolby theater, the one that saw Star Wars in. It's like, oh, it looks really great. And then
Mhm.
so and it was really neat. It had great. I thought the effects were incredibly impressive because that kind of graininess to them, that sharpness to them. Some are better than others. Like there's some things with like matte paintings of like that highly curved background in one of the scenes. It's like silly. I think I can bring it up, but
There's a lot of silly in
that
this
one,
movie.
yeah, that's a silly
Oh
looking.
no, there's a lot of this movie's like an hour and 40 something. I could cut 4 minutes off of Blair Brown blowing away in sand, and I could cut maybe 4 minutes from the monkey scene when he
Mhm.
turns into a monkey.
I
could
dug
get
that. That was kind of fun.
I could get this down to a tight 90, no problem, but
Mhm.
it's fine.
I mean,
I
this
mean,
was a
it's
lot
fine.
more mature than I would have remembered because it's like he was working. He had relationship problems he was working through.
That's Paddy Chayefsky.
Yeah,
I think Ken Russell is all the goofy and Paddy Chayefsky is all the smart
yeah.
here.
All the main characters kind of enmeshed in the university culture and lifestyle thing. It's like,
Yeah, and I really liked that. It was like
yeah,
Bob Balaban's character.
Oh my God.
He had a
everybody had
real
their own agendas about being in the college and exploring things, and it was like very
it,
interesting.
it really was. And then about the divorce and all that stuff. It's like that's what I enjoyed this time. It was like, yeah, the drug trip stuff looks really silly and dated now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do love them walking towards the nuclear explosion.
There had to be a nuclear explosion in this movie. This
But
is
I mean,
course.
we talked about like great actors can make bad dialogue. Like we talked about Gene Hackman, like selling the shit out of Poseidon Adventure, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
To a person, Bob Balaban, Charles fucking Hayde,
Oh my God.
Blair Brown, and William
William
Hurt,
Hurt in his
like,
first role.
to give them this script, which is such a mouthful.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
sell the shit out of this in every scene.
Mhm.
Like when Bob Balaban is like, I'm mopping up the tank room and I'm asking myself why.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
100% committed to the bit and 100% believable. Nobody is.
I don't know Balaban's background, but he just kind of like almost like a generic pick for like an intellectual.
He's one of my. We'll go back to Close Encounters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like a guy with a big thick glasses.
You ever see the movie he directed called Parents?
I know, I did not see that one.
So he made a movie in 1985 or six, I think, with Randy Quaid called Parents, about a little kid who thinks his parents are cannibals. It is one of the most fucked up things you've ever seen. I took my little sister to it when she was 11, and I convinced it like scarred her for life and/or turned her into a really interesting movie person. But anytime Bob Balaban shows up, particularly like all those Wes Anderson movies, I'm like, all right, the movie just got better.
Yeah,
Because
right.
he's great. Everything he's in.
Yeah, he is. He actually elevates most films he's in. I just watched Close Encounters last week, and he's like, he propels the scenes with Francois Truffaut. And all of them. But anyway, back to this thing.
Very good.
There's a bit he's talking about. He admits like, I want to get to the ultimate truth of reality, and like because they believe it's outside of ourselves, and I think. And I looked at my watch. I was like, well, whatever. The time was 21 minutes into the film. Gives you the theoretical statement 21 minutes into the film, so it's 10-minute development plus 10. So after that, it was just a matter of like once he set out on his hero's journey,
Right.
That's where it goes, And I thought the stuff in Mexico was just brilliant. I mean, it just now the effects
Oh
were
my
kind
gosh.
of were a little bit, rusty bat here and there, but I just like the setup, and the place looked amazing. Where in the hell they
The
shoot
makeup.
that? The makeup, and there's big thing. There's rocks on pedestals and
Yeah.
trippy looking area, man. It's like that's so cool. It's a
From the
cool.
very first scene where it's Bob Balaban narrating William Hurt talking about like it's such a doctory way of describing, well, this is the situation, but and then the type comes in from the side.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was just like at that moment, like I don't care, like yes, it's a love conquers all ending. Whatever. This movie is 100% vibe.
Mhm.
The script is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that you would never think Ken Russell and Chayefsky, but I actually think it kind of worked. And if you put anybody else, like if you put like I think it was Arthur Penn was originally designed, signed up to make this movie.
A ton of
I
people
don't know
got
that it would have
fired
been
just
half
for
as
it.
interesting.
Yeah.
It would have been more grounded probably, and it's probably not what it needs.
Probably would have
No,
been
I
a
mean,
lot choppier actually.
it is
The one thing about
pushing
Ken-
at the edges of Crazy Town, but it somehow never goes
Ken
all the way
Russell.
Yeah,
out.
and including the main character turning into a monkey. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
even that works.
Well, the thing about Ken Russell is that we kind of knock him because his subject matter is so bizarre.
I
Yeah.
love this movie.
White worm and like
This
the
was-
devil, something like that. But that guy can put together stories really well. I mean,
It was
it's
his
not.
last studio picture.
Yeah, we had some problems earlier with the films that were kind of that were made by big filmmakers where they're really choppy. They're
Yeah.
not holding. There's a bunch of ideas put together.
This is not choppy.
This flowed really well. Beginning
No,
to end.
and that's what the point I was sort of sneaking up on before. As I said, now the special effects on the drug trips are the least interesting stuff to me. It's them in the houses having the conversations, the cameras moving through the hallways, and it's and through the rooms, and it's beautiful, man. It's really good
What you
filmmaking.
said. Oh, that outside window thing, was that the first film that did that?
Oh yeah, I know the scene you're talking about after the big trip.
We stole it from the sensitivity program.
How about that scene where Blair Brown sees William Hurt for the first time and the door opens and he's just there backlit?
That's my favorite. I was trying to screen grab that for the show today. That's my favorite shot in the movie.
It's
Because
so,
it's what a way to introduce a character, man.
yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing: you've already met him,
Right.
It's the first
But-
time she sees him.
Yes.
It's like the
right.
golden god just walked through the door, and of course,
Right.
spectrum me to the hilt.
Right.
But you could just see like they connect almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And that weird, like, oh, this is what it was like in what is it supposed to be like 1967, 8, something like
67
that.
or 68. Yeah, yeah.
67, yeah,
This bed because that's what we did.
This-
But
go ahead.
this is a fucking, at the end of the day, this is a love story, and it is
Yep.
about
It
a
is.
woman
Uh-huh.
following a guy so he can figure out through his hero's journey. At the end of the day, he loves this woman and is actually able to say it to her out loud.
And at the
Yeah.
end, for her trouble, she gets turned into lava.
Yeah. With flippers. With flippers.
Like, I think she's putting her hands out. She's like, I'm.
But they kept getting shorter. Every time they cut to her, her arms were getting
That was a
shorter.
hell of a scene because it caused that empathy gap. It's like this
So
poor
s-
chick didn't deserve this to happen to her.
Well, originally the makeup that was on that, I don't think it's Blair Brown, the woman who's in that shot, it was all like her skin was removed and she's covered with veins and stuff. I've seen a picture of it.
Oh, I got it. It's in this magazine.
Ken Russell, you can get it from him and put it on the show then, Scott.
Good, because it's
But
like
Ken Russell started painting reflective paint on the veins, and he
Good.
just kept telling the guys, put more on, put more on, pour more on. And then he runs it through that, whatever that video processing or whatever it was he was doing. So
Well,
she
there's a guy
became,
named- I think his name was Bran Farron, who did
Mhm.
all the optical stuff on this movie. And
uh-huh.
that was
I'm,
yeah. I did the end, the opticals with the reverse and like the 2000.
yeah, just, like all the, this again, William Hurt is basically wearing this thing.
The
Yeah.
suit. Yeah.
And Dick Smith was very disappointed that they ended up doing all that optical stuff to
Sure.
it, but I don't know whether it just didn't look good in camera or Ken Russell thought
I
it
think
just
you had to have a combination of both. He had a good.
I think it's Ken Russell wanting 500% on the screen all the
And he
time.
got
you
it.
know?
He actually at that because that the suit and the effect, it really paid off, I think. Although I just have a funnier ending to this film when they touch the thing and she turns into the weird lava veiny thing, or basically strips all her skin off accidentally or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it gets all better. Then you smash cut to a hospital and she's wrapped up in bandages like the mummy. And it's like you son of a bitch.
You love me now.
There you go.
No, I mean, I again, like I'm watching this thing, trying to be as objective possible. Like, what would I yeah, I mean the sand, Blair Brown made out of sand goes on for maybe a couple minutes more than like. There's just a couple things that probably dragged on a little longer than they need to. But again, this was for me. This was a period of time post Star Wars and pre. You know, I don't like for you guys remember this from about what 78 after everybody saw how much money a genre picture could make.
Right.
Between Close Encounters and Star Wars, and you got this wonderful little 5 or 6 year period, you know, probably until about 1985 when things like Life
Yeah,
Force.
when 85 crested the entire thing.
But like but from about 80, 81, 82. Everybody talks about 82, but not enough folks talk about 81 and 82 because if you go back and look at what genre pictures were made and what ground was being broken either in the visual effects. I mean, Dick Smith, Rick Baker, and Rob Bottin running amok with the makeup effects.
Right.
You've got all these guys.
American Werewolf.
Yeah. You've got all these guys
who
grew up doing Corman and George Lucas, who then go on to get much bigger budgets to make, you know, flying spaceships or whatnot. Like ILM starts to like own everything. Like,
and also they start farming out their work too.
It was a really exciting time to be a movie.
It was. Well, you know, that there's the old adage that people lost more money trying to imitate Star Wars than Star Wars actually made. And it's also true about this kind of thing is when Star Wars exposed to Hollywood that you can do some pretty wacky sci-fi stuff and people will beat a path to your door. Right. So we had this great fertile period. We had Alien, you're talking about Alien, talking about this. I mean, these guys back the truckload of money to Ken Russell's house can maybe go to Hollywood and make this film. It's like, there's no risk here. There's no downside. We're going to let him do his thing. And they did.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, again, I don't know that, like I said, I think this was his last, after
it was his only Hollywood film, really.
Had that burst of creativity in the mid 80s between Crimes of Passion, Gothic, Lair of the White Worm, a couple of literary things. And, you know, and really didn't really work much after that, but I guess
misogyny.
Chayefsky and him hated each other so much on this movie that they had to basically ban Chayefsky from the set.
That's right.
If you looked up the IMDb on this, I guess there was some at the point where Chayefsky had sold the script, and I understand coming off of Network, right? Like, he was basically you cannot change one word of dialogue. And so Ken Russell was like, what do you mean I can't change anything? Well, fuck that. And then just goes off and just.
But then he also said he didn't change that much.
No,
he still sounds very Patty Chayefsky.
Yeah.
Actually, he couldn't. Right. Yeah. So again, like whatever the backstory is, what I'm watching on screen all these years later, I'm like, yeah, this still kind of works for me. Like everything about it, like the actors are selling the shit out of this. It's paced well. It's the music. We haven't talked about the music.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good.
John Corigliano, I think.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't work much. Like there's just something very like ground. Like I don't remember a soundtrack sounding like this at the point this movie came out in 1980.
Yeah. Also, don't give props to the art direction. I think that was like that copper tube thing that
the first tank he was in, the vertical tank.
Later on, they clean up that other tank. It's all the basements at MIT with all the pipes, everything going overhead. That's all set. And there's some great work in there in terms of how the film.
How badly did you guys want to get in a tank after this movie?
I actually did.
What'd you think?
I did go on a tank trip or whatever you call it. I didn't take any Indian psychedelic mushrooms.
You kind of don't need to. How was it fun?
It was interesting. It was a few years later. I was in college, so it wasn't that much later. And it was interesting. It was like an hour, I think. So goddamn quiet. You can literally hear your eyeballs move inside your skull. Like if you look left and right, you can't see anything in the dark, but you can hear your eyes moving inside your head.
Oh boy.
And as far as hallucinations went, it was just sort of my sense of where my body was changed, in that I felt at one point that I was slowly rotating, and there's not room in the tank for you to do this, and yet I was convinced that I was slowly spinning around.
It was actually probably your semicircular canals going nuts. It's like, okay,
they had nothing. They had nothing to work from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, the complete. There's a total negative buoyancy thing. All that Epsom salt in the water.
Right.
They had one in Santa Cruz. Well, duh, because it's Santa Cruz. They had one.
Did you do it?
I didn't do it. I signed up for it, but I chickened out at the last minute. But there was there, and I put my hand in there, and it's like blood warm. You can't feel your hand goes in. You can't really feel the water because
that's
it's
the point.
So warm. And
You're
I
not
was like,
hot, you're not cold.
I said, that's weird. I shook it off and I drove home and I realized I got the entire inside of my car white with Epsom powder.
Uh,
But it was like I said, it was a fad at the time. I'm not sure if it's came through or not.
I think I think it's coming back. I believe that I've read that there are tank places that the kids can go to these days.
the kids.
I'll never do it, but
Oh,
no,
anyway.
I mean, I picked this movie mostly for the amusement of you two. I figure it was going to be more polarizing for the other folks who are not here to to
Yeah,
shit.
the other half of yelling about movies would probably like be
I think, yeah, Jared, I have no idea what Jim, Jared, and Tad would think. I can't imagine they're going to like it nearly as much as I do. But I really like, listen,
you got sometimes you have to
Really,
advertise what you
both of
like
them.
here. That's the thing about it. You have to advocate your likes.
No,
Yeah.
This was fun to revisit because there are movies that you're like, it really hasn't aged as well as I would have liked it to have.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of movies from this era lately, almost without exception. Like, that's still good. That's still really good.
Mm.
And this is another one
So
like
this-
it.
Going back to that subject though, this does not disappoint. You watch it now, it's like, well, it's still a strong film.
Yeah.
Sometimes films of this era are like, well, that's so hokey, and they're not really trying the story kind of thing, But this one's, you can tell this Chayefsky or whoever wrote it and how it was directed. It's solid. It's actually
Right.
what John said. The stuff that's not effects is actually better than the stuff with the effects.
That's the part that feels. That's the part that feels kind of silly and dated, but that's that's like what, maybe 10% of the movie, right?
Also,
No,
as an aside, go ahead.
That scene where Bob Balaban and his wife are having a conversation in the bedroom at the party about, did you hear they're getting a divorce?
Yeah.
It's like, that's so well played.
Yeah.
And it's not a throwaway because it completely connects the through line, which is we have to get to a place where William Hurt can actually express himself.
I love you to his wife. Yeah.
Also, don't forget this. One thing about this, he pointed the fact this film starts in 1967 and ends right like 80, probably, right? This is we're just trying to process another boomer product. This thing is the boomeriest boomer film that ever boomed, man. And like William Hurt is the king of the boomers, right? Yeah. You think about the films he was in. It's like that, especially
if for no other reason than Big Chill, right?
Right.
Because that one's just like that's
boomerest movie ever made.
Where he kind of played the same guy in a way. He
in a
played
way,
that chilly, analytical, Aryan-looking guy.
Hello, broadcast news and the doctor.
Yeah.
Different though. The difference in broadcast news. He convincingly plays a guy who's not that smart in broadcast news.
The Doctor was actually, I should pick that sometime. That was a really good film.
The Doctor's good.
My office. I watched a scene with him in it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, okay. This, I guess, is thumbs.
No, also, this scene was pretty good.
So
yes,
an odd number, so there it is. So he's making.
Oh,
there it is. Okay.
I am all in on this movie. Sorry, guys, who didn't get to.
They're not here. Fuck them.